Nova Scotia faced the unthinkable. A man masquerading as an RCMP officer, an act of violence spanning more than 13 hours through the center of our province, from Portapique to Enfield, claiming the lives of 22 Nova Scotians, leaving families shattered and a province and a country in disbelief.
Today is a day of remembrance and reflection as we acknowledge the loss and pay our respects.
It seems like your whole premise about people is shaken.
We'll hear how communities where the grief is still fresh are trying to move forward.
It has altered the trajectory of our lives.
How those who hurt the hardest continue their journey to heal.
And how Canadians are paying tribute to those who were taken far too soon.
Hello, I'm Portia Clark.
And I'm Tom Murphy. Welcome to Stronger Together. Thank you for joining us to mark 1 year since the April 2020 tragedy.
But today, Nova Scotians found many ways to honor the people whose lives were lost, uniting in song and ceremony, finding strength in community, and with memories of their loved ones still so raw, some continued their quest for answers.
Shayna Luck has spent the day in Truro. She joins us now live with more. Shayna.
Well, it was certainly a difficult and emotional day for many people in this area and around the country. And we saw people express their feelings in a variety of ways today. Outside a Truro church, a mournful dirge for so many Nova Scotians taken too soon. Inside, the spaces between the families spoke of emptiness and heartbreak. Those who helped organize the event hoped it would make a heavy day a little lighter.
The world is a different place because each one of them lived. Their gifts, their talents, their joys, their sorrows, all contributed to building a better world. And for that, we give thanks.
Earlier in the day, hundreds of people fanned out across the province in a memorial run meant to remember those who died. The race raised funds for a permanent memorial to honor them. Some of the runners lost family members or friends.
We draw strength from people like those. When I was running, sometimes it gets hard in 42K, and I always said, behind me is somebody who had to lose a mom, and she's running for the first time. Let me keep going, not only for myself, for her, and for people in her position.
For many, it was a day of contemplation, a time for a walk through the woods, where small tributes invited people to stop and think a while. For others, feelings of grief as well as anger. Hundreds marched to the nearby RCMP detachment demanding answers. They have questions about how police handled the situation and say they haven't been transparent in the aftermath.
For it to have gotten that far and for other people to have lost their lives and it not to be controlled, we need to work better and do better and just be better.
Answers can never undo the pain of what happened during the shootings, but many hope understanding will lead to healing and will prevent this from ever happening again. Now today, in a statement, the commanding officer of the RCMP in Nova Scotia acknowledged that need for answers. She gave no new information, but she reminded people that the charges in the case are before the courts, and she also said that the RCMP are participating in the public inquiry that has been set up to look at exactly what happened. Now the inquiry, for its part, says that so far they've started their work, they've hired staff, they've set up an office, and they are required to deliver a final report and recommendations by November 2022. Portia?
Thank you for this, Shayna.
Well, this tragedy unfolded in several of our communities, from Wentworth to Debert to Shubenacadie. But we want to take you now to where it all began, Portapique. It's It's 1 year later, and many in the small coastal community have not stopped grieving.
I haven't dealt with it. I mean, 3 of the people were my friends, and I knew some of the others, including the shooter, as acquaintances.
Joy Laking, who has spent a lifetime capturing her community in watercolors, still can't quite grasp the words for what she's feeling these days.
And I guess that's part of it, that I felt 3 of those friends, you know, were murdered, alive one day and dead the next. It's just hard to fathom. And it seems like your whole premise about people is shaken.
Laking has spent hours painting the welcoming front doors of her community, where once they never locked them at night. Now, she says, many do. For her, the world has lost some of its color.
I love Nova Scotia and I love its beauty, and it just felt like I would never see any beauty again.
And she wonders about the future of Portapique, just across the river from her home, and the impact for the wider community beyond. Do you lock your door now?
Yeah.
So what are we seeing over there?
Just around the point is Portapique, okay?
Tom Taggart is the area's municipal councillor, one of those people trying to move forward from the tragedy and not let it define the community.
Because I've talked to a lot of those folks, residents up there, folks that sort of survived that night or woke up the next morning and found out that their neighbors had been murdered, and they absolutely don't want that notoriety. They want privacy, peacefulness and privacy. That's what they want.
And for some, they are moving ahead. Many of the homes owned by the victims have been sold. New families are moving into the area.
For the most part, either the victims didn't have family there, or their close friends and relatives have chosen not to return, and I can understand that. But there's no hesitancy by anybody to buy the land.
The province thought it best for it to buy the shooter's property, removing a stain on a community that is desperately trying to rally. Case in point, the Portapique Hall, now under renovation in hopes of giving this area a new focal point, a new start. But looming in the future is the public inquiry into the RCMP's handling of the mass shooting.
It's pretty raw yet, and the longer it goes on, the more it kind of festers, you know what I mean? And as much as it's going to be extremely difficult for this to be drug on forever, in the media, in whatever, they need to that has to happen for closure.
And then there are those who struggle to find the best way to commemorate the victims in all of this. Wayne Smith, whose stepson was killed in the rampage, built this memorial himself to assuage the grief.
You can't just throw it away, right? It'll always happen. It's just like a loved one, your parents when they die. But, they're more elderly, but these ones died tragically. They died before their time. We all stop. See, he even took his hat off. See what I mean? Like, that gives him comfort, you can talk, like, nobody talks today, right? They're afraid to talk, right? But you can be emotional around this and say, well, how are you dealing with it? How am I dealing with it?
And at the end of the day, that willingness by others to share the grief helps too.
It has been wonderful that the whole province has felt the pain. I mean, they don't feel it quite the same way if it isn't a place that when you live here, it's different. And a lot of Canadians too have shared the grief, and hopefully going forward it makes us all more human and caring.
Well, so many families have been grieving for the last year, and today they're remembering sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, siblings, friends.
The victims include a young family of 3. Nurses, retirees, a police officer, and an expectant mother. Now a special tribute to all of them, set to Lenny Gallant's rendition of Farewell to Nova Scotia.
The sun was setting in the west. No birds sang on any tree. All nature seemed inclined for a rest. Still there was no rest for me. I grieve to leave this native land. I grieve to leave my comrades all. My parents' hearts I do adore. The bonny, bonny lass I love so well. Farewell to Nova Scotia, sea-bound coast, let your mountains dark and dreary be. Oh, and I'm far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh or a wish for me? I have a brother now at rest. His arms are folded across his breast. My poor young souls, just like me, must be tossed and driven on the deep dark sea. The drums do beat, the bugle blows, the captain calls, we must obey. Farewell, farewell to Nova Scotia's charms. Early in the morning I am bound far away. Farewell to Nova Scotia, you sea-bound coast, let your mountains dark and dreary be. Oh, when I'm far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh or a wish for me? Will you ever heave a sigh or a wish for me?
Many of the families are remembering in private today. Jenny Kierstead lost her sister a year ago. And in the midst of her own grief, she felt the need to get involved in organizing today's tributes. Her sister, Lisa McCulley, was a mother of two who called Portapique home. She was also a teacher at DeBert Elementary School. Jenny, thanks so much for being here and having this conversation with me.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you.
I'm not sure how time has felt for you in the past year or so, but how does it feel for you coming up to this date?
I've noticed that the year has gone by with me being as present to my grief as I can. I will quote my mom. My life is like a dance between grief and gratitude. And so, yeah, we are deeply grieving, and we're so deeply grateful at the same time for the support from just simple text messages from people letting us know that they're thinking of us, to quilts and gifts delivered in the mail, and letters from people who knew Lisa in university who just wanted to share stories of her vibrant personality. So it's been really moving and helpful.
How have you dealt with, because this was a terrifying incident, how have you dealt with the fear around what happened as well?
Yeah, the trauma has shown itself in various ways throughout our family, and it has altered the trajectory of our lives, because trauma, it shatters your nervous system and has shattered my soul in many ways. Yeah, it's been a long and excruciating journey.
And part of what you do in your business is the program Girl on Fire, which is about empowerment of girls and women. And given that this was an incident of extreme male aggression and male violence, how has that informed or changed your perspective on that kind of work that you do?
So we're preparing for the 1-year anniversary, and I'm one of the key organizers in a series of events happening on April 18th. And I sent an email out to the team. In my email, I said that I will be wearing white to honor the women who were killed, and that my sister now joins the ranks of millions of women who have been killed at the hands of a violent man. And it sure brings new meaning to my work.
Jenny, you've talked about forgiving the person that did this. You've forgiven that person. And I'm wondering how, and how you can explain to people how you arrived at that point.
I don't know that I'm fully there. I think I've pivoted my focus from forgiveness to compassion. I don't want to live with a hardened heart.
Are there questions that you keep coming back to?
Gun violence, all of it, around his possessions, and how can we prevent this from happening in the future?
I'm wondering about how you're remembering Lisa, your sister, beyond and before the act that took her life, and how those moments bring you strength.
I'm a firm believer that death ends a life but not a relationship. And I invoke Lisa into my life often. One memory that keeps coming to me is in my late teens, I struggled with anorexia, and my health became very concerning, and there were mornings where I struggled to get out of bed because my energy was so low, and she would crawl in and hold me and offer her energy. So it's here. On the day she was killed, she actually built a labyrinth. And a labyrinth is it's a spiritual structure of rocks and a pathway of walking around the periphery and gradually walking into the center, symbolically walking to the center of our being. And I just think it's so Lisa. She was such a spiritually inclined person, for her to have built that on her last day. And so for the memorial walk, I've invited people in the community to paint rocks for all of the deceased. And I think that was inspired by the labyrinth that she made.
Jenny, thank you so much for sparing me the time to talk about your sister and where you are now. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Portia.
Among the powerful moments from today's ceremony, a performance from Jenny Kiersted's 15-year-old daughter. Here is Sophia Kiersted Abbas with a tribute to her aunt, Lisa McCulley.
It hurt, it really hurt at first. I'm not good with feelings, and talking only makes it worse. Never believed in anything I couldn't see, but for some reason you're gone and it feels bittersweet. 'Cause all you left is a beautiful scar, but it's enough to feel light in the dark. I guess all I want you to know is that it's hard, but I'm letting you go. It's not fair, oh no. Take care. You know, I wanted you to carry on, wish you could see how I figured it out and I found peace. 'Cause all you left was a beautiful scar, but it's enough to feel light in the dark. Oh, when you're working every day to come back to ungrateful faces, and you're just gonna take any more. And it was hard enough, I felt helpless, and I wish I could have said this, but you left and I accept it now. Hope you're there if heaven's a real place. Take care.
For many who lost a loved one, the emotions are still too raw to speak publicly. The families of Sean and Alana Jenkins chose to put their feelings in writing. Here's what they wanted to share.
The expression two peas in a pod never fit two people better than Dad and Alana. The fact that they were perfect for each other was something everyone could see just by looking at them. They loved nothing more than to spend time doing things like traveling and four-wheeling, and most of all having a good time with family and friends. They had a special way to light up your day. Even if you were having an awful day, they would smile and do everything they could to make you feel better. Their smiles and laughter are missed by everyone that knew them, but we take comfort in the fact that they're together because that's exactly how they would want to be. Amelia and Taylor.
And from Alana's parents and brother. The heartbreak and loss our entire family has endured over this last year has been beyond imaginable. Our beautiful Alana was not only our daughter and sister, she was our best friend, our rock, our everything. No less is the feeling of heartbreak we have for the loss of Sean. Together, they loved life, always doing things together, never one without the other, whether it be traveling, tubing down the river, or entertaining family and friends at their little piece of heaven on the Hunter Road, where everyone always felt so welcome. Love of family and spending time with them was most important to Alana and Sean, especially their overnights with their dear little granddaughter, Ellie. During these times, their hearts and our hearts were full. The void we now all have in our hearts from the loss of these two beautiful souls will never be full again. This quote describes them both perfectly. There is nothing more beautiful than someone who goes out of their way to make life beautiful for others. Dan, Sue, and Josh.
In the wake of such an unimaginable tragedy, so many of you looked for ways to express your grief and comfort your neighbors. For one woman, it was poetry, and she wanted to share it with us.
Hi, my name is Renee Kamel, and I'm from Nova Scotia. This is called My Dear Nova Scotia, originally written April 22nd, 2020, written by Renee Kamel. My dear Nova Scotia, hearts are heavy tonight. A senseless act of violence made, but love will be your light. The world doesn't stop for tragedy. However, we pause in disbelief. Lump in my throat, tears down my face, as our nation feels your grief. Lives of innocent people taken. How could this happen here? No ceremonies during a pandemic. Victims felt vulnerability and fear. Daughters, sons, sisters, brothers. How will their families cope? Mothers, fathers, cousins, friends. Community equals hope. My dear Nova Scotia, hearts are heavy tonight. A senseless act of violence made, but love will be your light.
Musicians from Nova Scotia and across Canada are lending their voices today to mark this anniversary. We'll be hearing some of them throughout our program. With a song produced for today's ceremony earlier in Truro, here's Heather Rankin with Never Forget.
Hi, I'm home in Cape Breton with my friends, and today we pause to remember those souls taken too soon this time last year. And we want to let their families and friends know that we continue to hold you in our hearts, in our thoughts, and in our prayers. You're never alone.
Protect you, and trouble neglect you, heaven accept you when it's time to go. May you always have plenty, your glass never empty, and know in your belly you're never alone. May your tears come from laughing, may you find friends worth having. With every year passing, they're worth more than gold. May you win but stay humble, smile more than grumble, and know when you stumble, you're never alone.
It has been a year, but the fear and uncertainty of that day is something that many of us will always remember. 22 people were killed, several were injured, leaving people with the unsettling thought, it could have been me.
Heather and David Matthews lost a friend and neighbor. Lillian Campbell was killed on one of her daily walks in the Wentworth Valley.
I spoke to the couple about the shock of that day on one of the benches that's been built in memory of the 4 victims in Wentworth.
Thanks very much, Heather and David, for being here to talk to me today. I'm wondering what memories come back to you sitting in this place where you would walk and have conversations and spend time with Lillian.
We remember Lillian well, often walking most days. She was just a very
nice lady.
Warm, friendly person.
Yeah. And we knew her for about a couple of years, didn't we, before?
Yeah, the first time we met her, we were walking in this park, and she was just new to the area, and we fell in step together, and we showed her around some of the trails that we walk on, and invited her to our home. And she came up for a glass of wine, and after a visit for about an hour or so, she left and went back home. And from that point on, we were friends.
And what's your sense, Heather and David, of how the community has changed since then or at the time?
The community came together.
Everybody was working together, I think, at that point, and providing donations to help support this memorial.
And it floored everybody, really.
I think so.
It really did. It floored people.
I grew up in this community, and it's always been very quiet. Just sort of a Sleepy Hollow kind of place. And then that happened. It's not the same.
You were also here, though,
I was here
morning.
that day.
We were walking down the trail.
We were walking through, and we heard the shot. I walked out of my driveway, and I said, am I going to walk down the road or take the path? And I chose to take the path. If I had to walk down the road, I could have been shot.
We could have been next. But we weren't on the road, thankfully. We were in the path, sheltered by the trees.
Yes, and we heard the shot, although we didn't know what it was at the time.
We did talk about it. We wondered. We heard it was a gunshot. It was just odd to hear on a Sunday morning around 9:30 in the morning.
Right, and Heather, you used the words, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Feels like it's
It sort of has broken our serenity, it seems. It's when you think of that terrible thing.
Or when you're walking and you say, oh my goodness, here comes a car.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to shoot me.
I see a police car and I think, I look twice now. I can't help it.
And how, as you wait for news out of the investigations, the various investigations and what happens in the inquiry, what are you most hoping will come out of that?
I would like to know that with anything that the public needs to be aware of, make us aware.
Yeah. And how much have you felt supported in that particularly keenly felt loss here through the year, like the whole year?
Well, we're stronger together.
I think so.
Yeah.
We all need each other.
We all need each other.
We all support each other.
Yeah.
And you feel like that's continuing?
It is. It is. It is in this community.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily hugging each other at the moment, but we all have our little ways of giving each other support.
What's an example?
Oh, just maybe an elbow bump, or just a holler out and say, you got a hug, a virtual hug from me or something. Yeah. We're all finding ways of trying to find a new normal in this time and to give each other support. Because we all need it.
And it's so important. It's really important to be nice to people. Just be nice. Just be really, really nice.
And so here in this place,
Does Lillian still feel present for you?
Yeah, very much.
Very much, yeah.
Very much. I can still see her walking.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for speaking with
Oh,
me
thank
today.
you for having us.
Thank you.
Yes.
At today's ceremony, family members and volunteers were welcomed to place a bouquet of roses on 22 pedestals at the front of the church. We want to show you some of those images now, along with Melanie Doan's performance of The Rose.
When the night has been too lonely and the road has been too long, and you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong, just remember far beneath the bitter snows lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose. In the spring becomes the rose.
The men and women of the RCMP are remembering a fallen officer today, Constable Heidi Stevenson. She was killed while on duty 1 year ago. Her colleague, Corporal Deanne Sack, is also a member of the Sebeganegedig First Nation. And at the time and since, she's looked to her Mi'kmaq traditions to comfort Nova Scotians and her fellow officers. Thanks very much, Corporal Sack, for meeting me today and talking with me as we reflect on the year that's passed.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you for having me.
Looking back and just the past 12 months, what effect did the tragedy have on you yourself as a serving member of the RCMP and a member of the community?
It brought a whole province to its knees, Canada to its knees. It tore a hole into my heart. It broke my spirit because I didn't know Heidi. Our paths have crossed, and she was doing what she loved doing best, serving her community, being a police officer. And it's a tragedy. It's tragic and it's heartbreaking.
As someone who has been in a lot of dangerous situations yourself, how are you identifying with or feeling what had happened?
It's hard not to connect and conjure up situations that you have been exposed to in the past, right? And the near misses and stuff like that. But it's not about me and my near misses. It's about the tragedy that took place.
And is there any level of understanding of what happened that comes to you out of this, or is that
even possible?
You can't, there's no understanding. It's like trying to figure out the secrets of the universe. It's impossible. You will never understand why an individual is compelled to hurt another human being. I will never get that for as long as I live. I will never ever get that.
And so you went to Indian Brook Detachment right after the April 18th and 19th tragedy, and what did you decide to do and why?
I did because I'm a Sundancer with the White Eagle Sundance, and we had community members in Indian Brook that were in close proximity that witnessed what took place, and I asked my partner, who's also a Sundancer, and a couple of other Sundance brothers, and the Eastern Eagle, Brian Knockwood and his gang, and we collaborated and we sang the honor song. And the honor song is the Mi'kmaq honor song, and it honors, pays respect to the people, pays respect to the members, and also to Heidi, who is now is on her spirit journey, right? When we're in our mother's uterus, when we're developing, and the first sound we hear is that heartbeat. That's what the drum represents when you're drumming on your drum, is the heartbeat. So our Mother Earth, our heartbeat. And so if it brought peace to anybody, then I've done my job as an elder of Sabaganagadek, as a member of the RCMP, and that was my only intention, just to help people with their healing and to let them know that, they're not alone, and to reach out anytime.
For the RCMP, there's been a lot of trauma, scrutiny as well. And I'm wondering about your thoughts about that as we head towards the inquiry and what's next in terms of looking for answers around this.
I haven't even turned my thoughts to there. I just can't right now. All I can focus is on good thoughts, prayers, and if anybody needs, I call it spiritual triage. If they need a hug, they need to be sung to. If they need to be smudged, then hey, I'll do my best to help anybody I can in any possible way. One of the teachings that if we look back in that time period about a year ago, and we look at the sun, the setting sun, I couldn't believe how intense and how beautiful the sunsets were. When you see the sun and the beautiful colors, like the amalgamation of colors, the yellows, the oranges, the greens, and they make that beautiful, perfect sunset that makes you go, oh wow, what an amazing sunset. It's that moment in time when Creator hears our prayers. And the sun sets in the west because the sun takes our pain, our hurt, and it helps us heal. It takes it away. And each time that sun sets, the pain diminishes a little bit, a little bit, a little bit.
What do you think Constable Heidi Stevenson's legacy will be? I mean, so many people talk about the kind of woman and officer and mother
oh my gosh.
she was.
In our language, we have a word that means warrior, and it's about one who gives selflessly. And that word is samaganus. So she truly is a hero. She truly is a samaganus. She is everything of grace and beauty and dignity. And what her legacy is, what isn't her legacy.
Thanks so much for the gift of your time. Walala and Corporal Sack.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
And tomorrow at 2 p.m. Atlantic, the Nova Scotia RCMP will observe a moment of silence to honor the victims, including Constable Heidi Stevenson and their families. Leaders from across the country are sharing their condolences with the families on this anniversary. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Nova Scotia Premier Ian Rankin had words to share at today's gathering in Truro. Here is some of what they had to say.
Your loved ones touch the hearts of all Nova Scotians, as well as Canadians and people from around the world. We all recognize the depth of your sorrow. We all wanted to help. Over the past year, the province has received thousands of messages written to the families from people all over Nova Scotia and the world. They sent messages to comfort you. They sent their thoughts and prayers. They wanted you to know you were not alone in your grief as you shared memories of your loved ones. They were your North Stars, and you theirs. but they live on in you, the families who love them, in the friends who long for them, and in the hearts of Nova Scotians who honor them today and always. This is their legacy.
Even a year later, I know there is no comfort for the anguish of having an adored parent or precious child torn away. I know there are no words for losing a beloved constable and teacher, for mourning respected nurses and corrections officers. So all I can say is this: you are not alone. All Canadians stand with you and grieve with you today and always. This tragedy never should have happened. Not in a place like Portapique, not in any community in Nova Scotia, not anywhere in Canada. This act of evil, it will not define the memories of all those we lost a year ago today. It will not define the communities that still grieve them. Instead, we will remember the kindness and joy of each person taken from us and the one life claimed before it could even begin. We will remember the strength of their families, families who shared with me stories I will never forget. We will remember the courage of the first responders who rushed to the scene, and we will remember the grace of Nova Scotians and of all Canadians in standing together to heal. The Nova Scotia Strong signs in the windows, the hearts and messages of support along streets and highways across the country. This speaks to the love that Nova Scotians have for each other and that all Canadians share. The pandemic means that we can't all gather in person to hold each other in grief and healing, but that the families, friends, and the entire community know that today, nothing can keep all of us from holding you in our hearts.
Here now is another performance from today's ceremony. This song speaks to the resilience Nova Scotians displayed as they came together in the hours and days after the killings. Here's Brett Kissel with Tough People Do.
I remember being all dressed up underneath that old oak tree, the day we laid my grandpa down. For all my life I'd been his shadow, his little man. I was learning what hurt was all about. That was the first time I ever saw my daddy cry. And he said, son, that's the thing about life. Yeah, the rain's gonna fall on us all. Your heart's gonna break sometimes, but there's no way around it. Life's full of mountains you're gonna have to climb, but there ain't no crime in crying. You just gotta keep on trying. So remember, no matter what you're going through, tough times don't last, tough people do. Baby, it's been all smooth sailing since we fell in love, but lately we've been on a rocky road. But if I know you like I think I do, you ain't giving up. And there ain't no way in this world I'm letting go. Baby, God put us together, and He don't make mistakes. And love is gonna be our shelter from whatever comes our way. Yeah, the rain's gonna fall on us all. Our heart's gonna break sometimes, but there's no way around it. Life's full of mountains we're gonna have to climb, but there ain't no crime in crying, 'cause we just gotta keep on trying. So remember, no matter what we're going through, tough times don't last, tough people do. Yeah, the rain's gonna fall on us all. Our heart's gonna break sometimes, but there's no way around it. Life's full of mountains we're gonna have to climb, but there ain't no crime in crying, 'cause we just gotta keep on trying. So remember, no matter what we're going through, tough times don't last, tough people do. Tough times don't last, tough people do. Tough people do.
And on that note, now we want to take you back to the community of Portapique, where a more than 150-year-old community hall is becoming a symbol of hope, a place where people are coming together, lending a hand to help shape their own future. On the shores of Cobequid Bay, smack dab in the middle of Portapique, there's a little, almost forgotten building where hope is being resurrected.
I'd like to welcome you to the Portapique Community Hall. This is the original Stetlers Church.
Alana Hurtle is with the nearby Truro Rotary Club. What's going to become of this space?
Well, we've got big plans, actually. The Rotary Club of Truro have been partnering with the residents of Portapique, and we've got a pretty major expansion planned, which is about to break ground this year.
So why are you doing this?
Well, Rotarians are people of action. We knew after the tragedy that we had to do something to help this community rebuild, to start over, and to change the negative light that had been shone on them into a more positive one. The last thing we ever want to be known as is the location of something that was so terrible.
So what are you going to do with this space? Because this is an old building. I gather it's an old timber building, a timber frame. What's going to become of it then?
Well, this is going to be great. It's actually, because of the age of it, it's old peg and beam construction, which is hidden at the moment because of the ceiling that's here. So once we move it, we have to move it because the floorboards aren't great, the foundation. So we'll be moving the building back onto a raised platform, actually. We'll be leveling it up by 8 feet and then expanding it out on both sides. So it's going to become a center for the community all along the shore to be able to come and have events like weddings or reunions or yoga classes. Pretty much everyone that we've called and said, this is what we need, they've said, yes, when would you like it?
What's going to happen outdoors? Because you have big plans for out here as well, don't you?
Yes, I'm really excited about what we're doing out here. The plan, if you can envision it, is going to be a fabulous natural playground. So we're going to bring in a lot of ground and make some natural hills. There's going to be a natural amphitheater built into the side of the hill facing the covered pavilion. We've also got lots of playground, natural wood playground equipment, so tree houses and accessible units that are on the ground as well. And they'll be able to play within the trees, and kids can play for hours in this area, right? And with all the beautiful trees and the maples that are here, it's just going to be a fantastic opportunity for kids to be kids.
And you're being purposeful to not make this a memorial to what happened, but something that's very much community-based.
Absolutely. Not that we aren't trying to be respectful of what happened, and we certainly understand the need for a memorial, but we really felt that the opportunity here was to help the community move forward and process through their grief by actually rolling their sleeves up and doing something to help them rebuild.
The province, the municipal government, the average citizen, among those chipping in to make it all happen. So we're about a couple hundred yards away from the building, but you've purchased this land with plans for this as well. What's going to happen here?
So it will enable us to move that back and give it a bit more central location on that plot of land. And then here, we're going to have basically a multi-purpose sports field. So it might be softball, it might be soccer, and it might be parking for a big wedding as well. But we've got lots of plans for this property specifically, and you can see it's pretty flat. At the end of the day, if we do nothing else than allow these children to have an opportunity to be kids and not have to think about what happened, then we've done our job.
It's people helping people. And an old hall that's been a part of Portapic since long before the shooting, now once again reminding everyone of the importance of community.
Something to look forward to, maybe many things, Tom.
And the community certainly looking forward to it indeed.
Well, before we leave you today, we want to thank everyone who opened up to us on this somber anniversary.
The story, of course, is far from over. Work is now underway to establish a public inquiry which will attempt to find answers to the many questions people still have.
And we want to leave you tonight with something special. Last spring, a group of local musicians teamed up with the Basin View School Choir to create a tribute to the victims. And here they are with their song, Stronger Together.
Our love is deep, deeper than an ocean. Our hearts are big, we keep them wide open. We will not be broken, the ties are forever. We will overcome, stronger together. Greater than the earth and the stars, greater than the sum of its parts. More beauty than heaven is in the heart, and it lies in between. Our love is deep, deeper than an ocean. Our hearts are big, we keep them wide open. We will not be broken, the ties are forever. We will overcome.